Greetings to everyone. I'm very thankful to Bihar State Legal Services Authority to grant me this occasion to talk on the World Student Day. Now, before I begin to talk further, let me introduce myself. My name is Rakesh Singh, and I'm an assistant professor in Jindal Global Law School. But this is the current status, current profession where I am in. But Chanakya National Law University happens to be a milestone in my life. And all this turn and the twists in my profession, a lot of it is because of the Chanakya National University, Patna. But the important part here is this day is important for very important reason because October 15th is the birthday of our late President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So in the year 2010, that was for the first time that the United Nations acknowledged the contributions made by Dr. Kalam and decided to celebrate this day as the World Student Day. He was always fond of students, be it younger students in the schools or the university students, the college students. And he always used to manage somehow within his busy schedule time to address the students. And there was something very important about him, which he always used to talk to students, was to dream. Certainly, that is further required to be processed with a lot of discipline and hard work. But to start off, his idea was to dream. Unless you think of, you kind of absorb your desires, your dreams, your wishes, and then process it through hard work with discipline will certainly lead to something better in every student's life. That was his idea, which he often used to share on public forums, schools, and colleges with students. But why do we celebrate his birthday as World Student Day? That's a very important factor that unless all of us we we should never let our student die at any moment of time, at any phase in our life. Why? Because who is a student? Student is a budding, curious mind which absorbs and process and learn new things. And then after familiarizing with the information, he or she then launches himself or herself in the real world. And unless before launching you process it properly, only then it will make more sense. And one will be able to contribute to self development, which will gradually end up into national development. So, we all know a lot about Dr. Kalam, and most of it can be gathered from different popular sources, that may be internet, that may be his books. But because I, in the capacity of a law professor, is asked to talk on this day, I would certainly like to contribute more on the legal education side for a part of it, and then I would like to focus on something which can benefit all the students, be it from any faculty, any stream of science or social science. And we will also see the different schemes from the National Legal Services Authority, which engages in a lot of their schemes and also allows the law students to be a part of it. Uh, they can do it by interning with them. Some students even work afterwards. So, to talk further, I would like to go back to the time when I entered the Chanakya National University. It has been quite some time since the time I entered. I started pursuing law. But 5 years in any law school is a really long time. And those 5 years are very critical for every student. Sometimes there are some students who come from families where they already have exposure to the legal profession, legal industry, whereas nowadays we see a lot of students who are coming as a first generation students pursuing law in different colleges, and then they explore this industry, then they explore the possibilities of this education. Now these 5 years mold the students in various ways. Some students are very much motivated from the very first day that they wish to, I mean, they have their dreams already in their mind. They know that they what they want to become, how they want to how they foresee themselves 10 years after the law school. So some students start working on it from the very first day. But I believe for most of the students, those 5 years often end up as, for most part of those 5 years, often end up as an exploration of their own self, their own capacities, and gradually they realize that they are able to filter their dream, and they are able to then work upon it, so that they can realize their dreams. But in any law school, to understand law as an education, as a curriculum, it is very important to see the lived realities in and around law, in and around the statutory framework of law. Now, the National Legal Services Authority provides that forum to students from where they can gain, they can learn about what is happening beyond the boundaries of their law school. Because earlier it was majorly concentrated within classrooms and libraries, but now to enrich yourself, to know it better, to know the implications, to know the realities, to know those areas where the law is in place and what is happening with the people around them. So, to understand these different realities, these different, the functionalities of law, one thing is very important, which is the clinical legal education. And National Legal Service Authority makes it much more accessible for all the law students. And then they are able to get to know about the functions of these laws and how they are interacting with us, with people around. But when I talk about this legal, the clinical aspect of the legal education, it has much more importance than merely studying and knowing law, because you don't just learn, you make some changes, you impact at that very moment. We have often seen now, because with the engagement over the years, I see that students on several occasions, they have intervened in different situations, people in distress, people in disaster situation, people who are facing the national disaster situation. And the National Legal Services Authority, they have these kind of platforms, these kind of different schemes, which are aimed at addressing especially the vulnerable section of societies and those people who are, you know, maybe because of a sudden change or any natural disaster situation, they are trapped in that. Some of the schemes which I would like to mention here, use this platform to let all the people who are listening to this, that they have they have different schemes, they have different arrangement to address the situation of the different students, the different categories of people who are in need of justice, who are in need of the intervention. So I would like to name some of those schemes of the National Legal Services Authority. So there is a scheme for legal services to disaster victims. Then there is another scheme which is specifically meant for the issues which is often faced by the younger generation, especially among females, the trafficking and then the forced into the commercial uh, sexual exploitation. Then there is another scheme which is meant for the workers in the unorganized sector. And then there is another scheme which is meant for the child, like children, for for the juvenile protection. Then NALSA has schemes for people who are, you know, disabled, and not just disabled physically. They have special schemes for people who are suffering because of mental health concerns. They also intervene, they also have schemes for the poverty elevation programs. They have a special scheme for the tribal rights for people living in the Schedule 5 areas, which is known as Protection and Enforcement of Tribal Rights Scheme. NALSA also intervenes with the victims of substance abuse, and those people who are in clutches of these addictions. They also have schemes for senior citizens, and in the year 2016 they also came out with a plan for people who are affected, because of, yeah, those victims of acid attack. So by all these different schemes, I believe that, to understand the application of laws in these particular areas, like people who are affected with these situations, people who are affected and caught and trapped in these situations, it is the best opportunity for any student to be a part of wherever they are. They may be in located in any remote district, but they do have the district legal services authority over there. Or otherwise, if you happen to be, you know in and around the places where you have the state legal services authority, then you can be a part of it, and you can make the change. You can learn, and you can make your efforts to address the issues faced by the people who are, suffering because of these situations. But to do all these things, it is very important for all the students, for any student, to to get back to what Kalam used to emphasize, to have dreams. And dreams, not, like dreams of becoming uh, something for just for yourself. It certainly starts from that, but it leads to, the greater good. It leads to development of everyone, and it further ends up in the national development. If you are so motivated, and because of these occasions, because of these possibilities of engaging with the legal services authority, and to work with them closely, with the people who are affected with these situations. That will, that will help anyone to formulate their own, objectives, their own desires, their own dreams, to to be at a position from where you can extend, from where you can, share your resources, you can use your expertise to help the people who are in these difficult situations. Now, it is it is often seen, and I'm saying it because I was myself a student, and usually the clinical legal education does not get, that kind of attraction, that kind of uh, force. But I see that with these new colleges coming up, and if I recall my own alma mater, Chanakya National Law University, we we had, and even now, because um, I'm often in touch, we still take it very seriously, and we have a very active legal aid clinic in the university where students, they travel to remote areas, they get a chance to work with people who are affected at the ground level. Now, why am I talking about these things on this day? No, unless you see the real application of law, the understanding and the analysis which one can develop by spending time in the classrooms, by reading it on your own, by reading it, by spending time in the libraries, these all do matter. And what I'm saying is not something I'm excluding and I'm isolating these different things which one student should do. But in addition, in addition to all these efforts, given the opportunity with your law schools, given the opportunity that every law school has legal aid clinic, one should get attached, get aligned with the legal aid clinic and actively, participate, not just for the sake of participation. I do understand there are sometimes students, um, you know, I mean, we can give them the benefit of doubt that they're young minds, but as we are talking about it now, then I I want my students, I want everyone who is listening to really understand the importance of the implications of these laws. Like, for example, you know, now we have different laws for bringing in the affirmative change in the real situations among those people who are Vulnerable because of various factors. Sometimes there are factors of oppressions, sometimes there is a part self contribution. There can be a mix of both of it, and there can be other factors as well. But whenever we we go and interact with them, we listen to their narrative, and I was listening to one of these lectures which was given by Professor Bakshi about the Bhopal gas tragedy. So I'm assuming that we have. I mean, it's just impossible to know it in entirety, but we do have some idea about that disaster which took place, and many people lost their life overnight. So he was making a very critical statement. He was making a very important statement that one can read law, one can read cases, decisions from the different courts. That certainly adds up to building up of the perspective to understand what must have happened and how the law was applied, how the contesting parties defended their own cause, and then how the courts processed the arguments from the contesting parties and then decided for they then they arrived at the justice. But he was emphasizing on something which is only possible when you kind of get into you take seriously the clinical side of the legal education, because he was focusing, he was talking about narrative of the arguments which is made by the lawyers, then the narrative of the honorable judges when they pronounce the orders, the judgments. But to the only way to know the narrative of the victims, the best way to acquaint yourself with what really happened, how they got affected, I think, and as he was suggesting, you know to go to the place where the incident took place, to talk to those people, to prepare your kind of like a note where you can get back, and then you can look at the legal implications of what has happened with them. Is there any law which can be used to generate arguments to provide relief to them? So this process of the identification of the most appropriate law in a particular situation, and then the further to develop your legal arguments, the best way is to hear it from those who have suffered, and the legal aid clinics are the best platform to you know to know how it operates, to know how, to get to know the raw facts of what people have faced. And then, when you get back, when you are back in your classrooms, when you are back in your libraries, you can take out the law books, you can take out the whereas, and then you can look for, the appropriate provision of law which is most suitable in the situation. And, you can develop your legal arguments. Now, by doing all these things, you develop your skills. Apart from the knowledge of the laws, you also develop your skill set of using those laws in the moment, in that situation, in within those facts. It is like it is like a knitting exercise with threads of law and the threads of facts. And for any law student, it is the best possible forum available while you are a student. I understand that these days law students, they also tend to intern, and now this is quite an old practice, that even while the you are in your college, you are still pursuing your education, but you tend to intern. That is also one way of knowing the applications, knowing the realities, knowing how lawyers argue, knowing how the courts process. But you know that is still limited to the later part of the whole process of the trajectory of the application of law. Courts are the second half of this trajectory. The first half is more with when you get to engage with the ground realities. And if we look at these different schemes of different schemes which are run by the National Legal Services Authority, they are very much equipped to enable students to get involved in these different and difficult situations, and that do require a lot of motivation, because I understand there is an inevitable factor of um, work which we all expect after our education. But not because we are talking on this day when the idea is to celebrate the World Student Day. Looking from a practical perspective now, I can clearly say that while one is a student, employment certainly is a concern. And often there are opportunities which appears very glossy, but the realities vary. They do not align. with the way usually students are attracted, or I would say they get deviated rather. The primary idea, any student, while one is experiencing those 5 years in law school, I think that should always be more towards learning. And certainly when I say learning, learning not just books, learning, reading the decisions, the theories, but when I say learning, I mean it in in a very comprehensive way. I mean it in a very holistic way. And that learning is possible because of these legal aid clinics which are there in the law colleges, universities, and you know the kind of interactions, the arrangements which is further facilitated by the legal services authority, by the respective legal services authority, if it's a district or if it's a state, or if one has access to the city Delhi and then certainly the National Legal Services Authority. They provide all these opportunities, these uh, different possibilities to students to not just read law, read the black letter law, to see the to experience the vivid interaction of theory of the script and its functioning within the society. Only after that, I believe that student experiences will be so enriched that it will automatically drive you. It will it will give you that kind of motivation, and you never know, like you can be in a situation which can mold your aspirations completely, and you know that can drive you so forcefully that you may find something which you really want to take ahead after you graduate, after you become a lawyer. So I see that when we are talking now on a day where we are celebrating the World Student Day. So I want to, I want to bring out something. I want to share something which can really, enable these students, can really guide them, and they can then themselves experience the impact of, getting involved into these process, getting involved into these real time situations, and then processing it with the statutes, with the black letter law. So this is a part of the conversation. Now, I would also like to, you know, focus on something which applies universally to all the students of any curriculum. But before I say about it, I want to locate my stance that I do realize that, you know, the teachers, the guides, the instructors, they are people around us. There are people like me. There are people like some of you are listening. We do have our own individual limitations. But my this is something which I understood much later after graduating, after working at different platforms, and currently while I am on the other side of the table, because earlier I was a student, now I'm a faculty. So oppositely placed in any classroom. And now when I remember the interactions with my faculties in my law school, I I always think of, I mean, it's still, it runs in my mind. And each time I end up preparing for something, for my lecture, or even when I was practicing as an advocate in Patna High Court, it used to remind me of, those provisions, those chapters which was taught in my law school by those faculties. I'm very grateful to all of them. And I'm sincerely grateful to all of them. It is not just because, you know, we are celebrating a very important occasion, but I do realize that every time when I see the applications and I'm able to relate to what we were told. And certainly there is a purpose why I'm saying this now. Because I know that we as students sometimes, we tend to we are mentally occupied with a lot of emotions, and then we end up, at times we do end up being dismissive about our faculties. We end up looking at them critically, and those are deviations. That's my, I don't want to use the word advice, that's my understanding, that those are absolute deviations. Even if we look at the way Dr. Kalam stepped out from village and ended up being known as the Missile Man of India. Certainly, he also must have faced, the different spectrum of teachers in his life. But to unless we are in that, we put ourselves in that position, where our mandate should be so focused that fine, it's just a matter about listening to what your teachers are telling you. You do that first, then you go back, you use your own resources. And when I say resources, I mean libraries, books, your friends, your other faculties, your seniors, your juniors, your alumni. You then process it further, and only then you will be much more enabled, and you will be able to know the nuances, to peel off the superficial layer of information and look deep inside it. Look beyond you know, those things which anyone can read, and one can read, and one can, talk in the class. One can just tell you about it. That all right, there is, there may be a formula in physics, or there may be section in law. Either ways, that can be told. But then the onus lies on us. And when I say us, I mean students. And there is a reason why I say us. Because I firmly believe that we should never let the student die within us. We should always foster the student which we are from within. Why? Because only then, we will be staying curious. We will, we will maintain our trust to go back, to, read, verify. I mean, in academic spaces, we go back to library. But, even in other professions, in other programs, in other educations, one can go to the lab, one can look at it on internet. There are various sources. There are various sources. But we should always, you know, we all of us as a student, we should always have that curiosity to know that, the different probable questions which hits your mind whenever you know about something new. Like, what is this? How it works? Why do we have this? Now, this can only be done when we, when we put ourselves in a position where we first gain the information which possibly your teachers are sharing in the classrooms, and then you process it on your own. Because unless you engage in the self capacity with the issues which which have arisen in your mind, which is boggling you after, reading a book, or after listening to your teachers in the classroom space, then you go back, You go back to library, you go back to different databases, and then you look for it, you verify it, and you use your own mind to understand it, to process all those information. So to process the information, first important thing is to attain the information. And to do that, one has to be, disciplined enough to, to first gain and absorb, like to grab the information, to grab the knowledge which is shared by others, and for which all of us as student, that is why we sign up for it. I mean, the very purpose of going in a law school or in any curriculum, any college, that is the sole purpose. To go to the class first, to hear it in its neutral capacity, and then when you have the first layer of information, which is bringing queries in your mind, then you look for it further. So starting from the first part of my conversation, where I was focusing on the importance of the clinical education, though I focused it primarily on the clinical legal education, but it equally applies in health, in medical studies. When it comes to the natural sciences, we see the applications in laboratories, and these days a lot of things is done on computer. Young students are engaging into coding, and different new platforms are coming up where young minds are engaging in the real application of the knowledge which is given in in your colleges. So the first part which I talked about was the importance of the clinical education, be it in the legal field or in any other field. The second part was is much more important, because to understand its contributions, to understand the way it affects, is realized much later. And that is something very contrary. Still, I will make my efforts on this occasion to tell all the listeners, to tell all the viewers, that one has to be disciplined in order to first absorb what is coming from different sources. That may be your faculty, that may be any book, but then there is a subsequent process which is the most important process. When you go back and you do the self processing of all these information, not by heckling someone, you know that to me is not the best way of processing the information. No, you have to make efforts to cross read from different sources, and then arrive at your own conclusion, and then see the relation between what was being told to you, what you read, and what you are able to find afterwards. That requires an amount of discipline. Now, with the combination of these two things, I believe that the 5 year in law school, or whatever is the time for your education, will certainly enable every student to determine, to identify and then determine what is best for them and how they want to foresee themselves after their, after their education, after their college. And that is the third most important part, which I'm going to talk about in the shortest time now. So, when you do these two process, then the third one, the motivation to be something, that will get, that will germinate, that will pop out the way a seed germinates. So, with the right amount of humidity and right amount of temperature, a seed germinates. So, with the right amount of information and knowledge, and with the right amount of looking at its application with the society, be it, electric vehicles, how it is affecting people, if there is any accident, or how pollution free it is, and then further looking for better technologies. Like, fine, currently, we have electric vehicles which can travel few distance. Then how can we look out for ways where that capacity can be enlarged? Can we have more charging points, or can we have better capacities of batteries? So similarly, it applies in the law as well, and in any science, in any study. So a combination of the information and the processing part of it, the application part of it, that these two are the most important factor for your mind to germinate and to further think and determine what you want to be. And that was the idea which Dr. Kalam has always talked about. And now I would like to end this conversation. And I'm sincerely grateful to the Bihar State Legal Services Authority for allowing me this opportunity to to share my views on this important day, this great day of World Student Day. I would like to end with this one of these, when Dr. Kalam addressed it in a gathering, which I have noted and kept with myself. I'm not able to recall, the actual occasion when he said it, but somehow it has been noted with me since a long time. And he said, if you fail, never give up, because fail means F for first, A for attempt, I for in, and L for learning. That is, first attempt in learning. End is not the end. In fact, end means effort never dies. If you get no as an answer, remember, no means next opportunity. And he ended by saying that let's be positive. And there is no better way to craft our abilities and become a better individual. So I think I have kind of talked enough on about my views upon how I could have celebrated this very important day for not just for this day, even for our country, because to recognize his birthday as a World Student Day is something for which we can feel proud and which we should feel proud. So I would like to thank everyone, and I will again extend our gratitude to the Bihar State Legal Services Authority for for giving me this opportunity to talk on this day. So thank you everyone. Take care, because we know that this time is still critical, and we have to protect ourselves with this deadly coronavirus. So let's all be safe, and you know let us never let our students settle inside us. Thank you everyone.